Welcome everyone to today's coverage of the SKUSA Pro-Kart Challenge as we get started for the 2025 campaign here from California. We're at K1 Circuit, one of the newest go-kart facilities in the United States, as we get set to see who gets themselves into a battle for a championship, who gets themselves into some exciting racing, and who's able to establish some points here for the start of this 6-round campaign. I'm Justin Prince. Alongside the booth for today is Nate Dean as we get set for the start of the Pro-Kart Challenge season. These drivers are currently in the midst of finishing up the warm-up sessions. Right now, you're keeping an eye on the Pro Master Shifters at the moment, with Kyle Wick at the top of the board for their session. Drivers today finishing up 5 minutes of warm-ups for each of these groupings before they work to 7 minutes of qualifying to set the grid for the pre-final and again for the final for later on today, Nate. It should be a fun day to see which of these drivers is able to come away with some good points to start off 2025.
Yeah, absolutely, Justin. Awesome to be here and to be racing at K1 Circuit for the first of 3 times. The Pro-Kart Challenge will be heading here in 2025. As you see, the Pro Shifters and the Master Shifters are ending their warm-up session. We get to go qualifying for the first time in 2025. It was an exciting season in 2024, and we have a big lineup of drivers throughout all the classes. It's going to be a fun one to watch, Justin, as KA Junior will be on track next. Is some of the best in the nation and definitely the best on the West Coast will be fighting it out this weekend.
Absolutely. This is going to be an exciting time to see how these drivers are faring out. Again, for these drivers throughout this series, they're competing for daily podium prizes such as PKC entries with tires for the top points getter and winner throughout the day, including a high-quality trophy. But the big ticket for the championship, first place for each of these classes except for the FC 125s, a chance to race in the Supernats. The 2025 Supernats entry with tires is that #1 prize if you pick up a championship. That's going to be the main goal for these drivers, is getting a chance to race in the Supernats later on this year.
Yeah, absolutely. The crown jewel event of American karting, and even one that drivers from outside the United States look on and want to win. You see the amount of European, South American drivers that make their way over to Vegas every November. All these drivers are going to be fighting for that. It's the, like I said, crown jewel. Everyone wants to win it. So throughout this 5-race season, everyone's going to be gunning for it.
So to wrap up how things just went for Pro Master Shifter by Precision Racing Engineering for this grouping, engine should say, Kyle Wick, then you have Kiwan Tandon and Billy Musgrave were in the top 3 in the practice session. Hunter Pickett and then Ethan Buher was in 5th in this session. So what's coming up for these drivers? They're getting all set for the qualifying grouping. The K1 Juniors, followed by the seniors, the K100 juniors and seniors, then the mini Swifts, followed by the K100 Masters, then it's FC 125 shifters, followed by the mini and junior shifters, the micro Swifts, and the Pro Master shifters, how they're sorted. Currently, these drivers are getting set for the first of the qualifying sessions here. Let's talk about this racetrack, though, because it's one of the newest tracks in the country. 8 years in the making, as talked about, when this facility officially opened back in October. 1.1 miles, 12 turns around this circuit officially, 13 for the Pro Track layout. It's a racetrack that's been in design for a long time in terms of the preparation. This facility is immaculate, you can say. You've been following along with this facility for a while, Nate.
Yeah, absolutely. Been following the construction of it, and it's one of the best in the nation right now. It's something that the West Coast desperately needed in terms of the way you look at North American karting. You have Trackhouse on the East Coast, you got Newcastle in the Midwest, and now finally the West Coast has this big national track to cling on to with K1 Circuit. A lot of the drivers love it, heard a ton of praise, and it certainly looks like a fun track to drive around. So a little bit envious of these KA juniors as they'll be heading on track for their qualifying session here on Saturday.
Qualifying now getting underway. It is time for K100 Junior, brought to you by Super Speed Bearings as they hit the circuit to see who will start towards the front for today's action. It was Sebastian Hauser who led the way in the practice session earlier this morning with a 1:07.761. Nathan Dupuy and Daniel Ramirez were in the top three. Already some contact to start off the qualifying session. That's not how you want to start.
Absolutely not, especially with just sitting on grid. All the nerves start to build up, and then you make a mistake like that. It's not how you want to start your weekend either, but it's going to be up to those drivers to just hit the reset button, take this warm-up lap, and be able to cool back down for their very short qualifying session coming up. About 10 minutes for each class. It's a fairly long qualifying session in terms of karting standards, but still the pressure is on to get that lap down in such a competitive field in K100 Junior.
So who are you watching out for the most for KA100 Junior here today in terms of who you expect to be contending for wins, but also potentially contending for this pole as we see some of these drivers grouped together here?
Yeah, absolutely. Matthew Cagle is one to look out for. He's the reigning champion in this class for the Formula Works GFC driver. You also have to look at John McClellan, moving up from Mini Swift this year. He's the champion from that previous category on the Nash Motorsports kart. A few others, Eric Dolan, Nathan Dupuy, the Rotax Grand finalist for Team Canada last year. He has a couple of stars and USPKS podiums in his back pocket from 2024. He's going to be looking to make an appearance at the top step in 2025. This could be his first opportunity to do so.
The driver who's leading these groupings right now, by the way, this is Bronson Custas, who's leading the way in the 876 car, working with Daniel Ramirez. A couple other groupings of 3 and 4 as they make their way down the front straightaway. We'll see where the times start off in this qualifying session. Drivers have an hour, 4 minutes, 45 seconds precisely to be able to set the fastest times in this session. This track, though, I've noticed on this layout, Nate, we'll see the times populate, have a lot of drafting potential. The run out of turn 12 to 13, that run out of 13 to turn 1, turn 3 to the Rocky Moran corner up to turn 4. Lots of straightaways is going to be a main characteristic here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to make this section in 6, 7, and 8 key to make sure you don't lose that draft. It's a very technical section in the middle of this track, but exactly what you said. This is going to produce a ton of draft racing, a lot of pack racing from when you go from turn 12 all the way into the braking zone of turn 5. When it comes to the races, we should be in for some good ones, but at the moment, KA Junior still on track for the qualifying session. Times are close throughout the field, apart from that 0.3 of a second gap that Hauser has at the top of the timesheets.
Cosmic Kart of Hauser continuing to lead things, by the way, amongst the top of the board. Cagle in this grouping amongst your fast pack. Let's see what the second times go. Hauser gets to a 104.158. Max Stein moving his way to second. Luca Popso up to the third spot in the session. As this kart grouping continues to gain additional karts here. So looking good in terms of this pack so far. Great rhythm. You can see how much speed they carry around here. Let's talk about the max speeds. They can carry around 80 plus miles an hour here if you push it here at K1 Circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. And how about that time from Sebastian Hauser? 0.8 clear of the field. That's not something you see in K100 Junior competition. For the drivers, if he can hold that pace throughout the rest of this qualifying session, it's going to be a huge demoralizing blow for the rest of the drivers in this field if they can't find a little bit of time on Hauser at the top of the field right now.
Hauser, that fifth car in line, you see him close up right now. Let's see if he's able to keep himself top of the board here for the third time around. They still have 2 minutes to work with. Hauser went into the 103s this time. Went up by a near 0.3 of a second over Daniel Ramirez now. Hauser's looking really solid in the heart of this pack. Has a little cushion from behind. Has a tiny bit of cushion off that 815 kart in the line to be able to try and draft a little bit right now.
Absolutely. And you said this is going to be a drafting track, and he's in an optimal spot to be able to get a little bit of slipstream around this place. Doesn't seem like he's being held up too much, though. Looking back at the time sheets, Daniel Ramirez went third fastest in a warm-up. He currently finds himself second. Then reigning champion Matthew Cagle in third, just 0.2 of a second separating those guys, and then about a second covering the top 10 as things stand.
One card off the racetrack, the 828, having some problems there. That is Peyton Anderson, who's running 33rd in the qualifying session, went off. Hauser stays top of the board as that time by, they went into the 103.8s, about a 10th off that prime time. And this leaves just about a lap or two at best to be able to try and move up. Kustas just went the quick in the group in the 103.8s. Still 26 100ths of a second, though, off the pole time. He's third in line. As you see, some of these drivers getting a little bit impatient in this line to close out the session.
Yeah, and you look back just a couple of minutes ago when the gap was 0.8 to the leader. Now the top three between Hauser, Kostas, and Popescu is covered by less than a 10th of a second. This is the KA Junior Racing and qualifying we're more used to as this session starts to close down.
Looking like the 832 Hauser just taking some small peaks. 20 seconds or so left on the board, flag in hand. These drivers will get an extra lap here. Hauser went to 104.2s that time by, so the fall off is starting to pop up here in this session. Looks like the 814 moving up. Popescu moving up to be able to try and leapfrog Matthew Cagle there, as these drivers look to finish out strong as they reach the 7-minute mark. Checkered flag for the first qualifying session of the day.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if more drivers improve, especially in the middle sector of this track. It seems like it heats up the tires quite a bit, so you wonder if those tires are going to fall off or if they can make it throughout the entire session. It all comes down to kart setup too. Who went low on pressures, who went high? How do you set this kart up for a fairly short qualifying session? Just this run down into the final corner to go now for these leaders. It should be checkered flag in the air. Hauser currently holds it by 0.02 of a second. You see checkered flag in the air and top five. No one really moving around except for Luca Popescu, who goes pole and steals it from Hauser. A great lap from the 815 kart, the Formula Works GFC driver. He'll hold it for the time being, but out of nowhere, Luca Popescu takes it away from Sebastian Hauser.
How about that in the last few moments? And he was one of the drivers trying to leapfrog a little bit in that final portions of the session. Just about everybody crossing through to close up our first qualifying of the day. K100s here on Kart Chaser. So those drivers will make their way to pit. Popescu, top of the board by 42 100ths of a second over Sebastian Hauser. Broseph Kustas. Then it's Daniel Ramirez and Eric Doan. See them on screen fully. Matthew Cagle dropped all the way down to 6th at the very end of the session. He was top 3 much of it. Nathan Debris, should say, in the 7th spot. Then you have Sergey Katseli, 8th position, 855 and the 835, rounding out the top 10. 0.6 of a second spread. Your thoughts on qualifying for the KA100 Juniors as it started spread out. It became compressed later.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these drivers just getting to grips with the track this morning. They had a short warm-up session to figure it out, but it seems like towards the end of the session, they've all started to figure out this K1 circuit. Little surprised to see Matthew Cagle down in 6th, but only a 10th off, and that's just really the smallest mistake, maybe missing the braking zone a little bit, turning in a little bit too early, as we will be heading to break before we head out on KA100 Senior. You're watching the SKUSA California Pro-Kart Challenge on Kart Chaser. Stay with us.
Brandon, why are there all these charges for just over $200?
I'm tired of all this Brandon business, okay? Brandon this, Brandon that. Why are there all these expenses on AKR over $200? We know, okay? Take a walk with me. At Shop AKR, they have everything you need to start racing at a very cheap and affordable price. They have MXC rims, they got chains, electrical stands, toilet seats. They got MXCs. And if you didn't know, on top of that, any purchase in the continental US over $200, that's free shipping.
Hey, aren't you supposed to be in the AKR Anonymous meeting over there?
Dude, I'm doing a commercial.
Dude, we have no time. It's about to start.
Stop. We all love Shop AKR. Me? More than others. What do I get at Shop AKR?
MXC rims.
Ready to elevate your racing game? Introducing Apex, your 24/7 personal karting coach. Apex is your ultimate racing companion. Get expert advice anytime, anywhere. From setup tips to mental strategies, Apex has you covered. Fine-tune your car for peak performance. Get personalized advice on adjustments like tire pressure and chassis settings. Apex helps you master the track, from overtaking strategies to wet-weather driving techniques, and to resilience to perform under pressure. Apex keeps you focused, confident, and race ready. Using Apex is simple. Sign up, ask your question, and receive instant advice from top-tier coaches. With Apex, your personal karting coach, you're never alone. Get instant expert advice on everything from setup to technique. Unlock your full potential with Apex. Your journey to victory starts here. Happy racing.
The K1 Circuit Semi-Pro League. This is a competitive race series with two classes. Junior Series for those who are under the age of 18, and the Senior Series for those who are 18 or older. If you think you have what it takes, come out and prove your skills on League Night. Both schedules are live on the K1 Circuit website. Your Kart Chaser live feed will resume shortly.
Back everyone to today's coverage here from the K1 Circuit. We continue our coverage of the Pro-Kart Challenge as qualifying continues here from California. Justin Prince alongside Nate Dean as we now work with the KA100 Seniors by Formula Works as we see who will set the top time in this grouping. The driver who set the top time in the practice session, it just so happened to be Jake Drew, who led the way by 45 100s over Keegan Kaminsky. Aiden Kemp and Shane Aldridge were amongst the top four in the practice session. So far, Nate, we've seen the drivers pick up a lot of speed, especially in the middle portion of the qualifying session and the tail end. Now we see how the seniors do it for the qualifying session.
Yeah, as you see, a lot of scrapping for position. It's typical for this early stage of qualifying where drivers are trying to find who they want to work with, trying to find their friends or teammates on track to get themselves in an optimal position to get themselves further up the leaderboard. You see everyone that's moving away and in for position here down into the final corner to start qualifying off as they'll cross the timing and scoring beacon for their first timing lap through turns 1, 2, and 3. A really difficult part of the course is still more drivers getting out of the way and trying to figure out where they want to go. More battling for position. You wouldn't be wrong if you thought this was Heat 1, but it's only qualifying in the second lap of it, Justin.
Yeah, they're racing around the track like, well, it's a final right now. But the way they're going 3 wide in some of these corners, some of these drivers still can't figure out where they want to be in the draft train. Others trying to pull out like it's iRacing at Daytona down underneath the yellow line you see with the 943, for example. So a lot of these drivers just trying to figure things out here. Obviously, racing like this doesn't help with the qualifying times, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's completely optimal. As you think every time they come across the timing beacon or they come into shot, they'll have figured it out, but still no, onto the back straight in between turns 12 and 13, the longest straightaway on the track. There's still drivers trying to figure out where they want to be in position. A couple of them going wide in the final corner of 13. We're going to see the first couple of drivers crossing the timing and scoring beacon to get lap times. Archer Eversman the 966 driver, currently fastest on track for his Forward Direction Motorsports Pantano kart. We'll see if he can stick there, but as you know, Justin, we have a sold-out class in KA100 Senior presented by Formula Works. A lot of talent in this field that hasn't gotten a lap down yet.
He's still keeping up at the top of the board. That 966, you see him trying to cut through. He's in the black and yellow, with the bit of the greenish on the suit. He's amongst those that have moved his way up to the ranks with teams like Formula Direction Motorsports back around 2019. So far, looking solid. Jake Drew in second by 0.2 of a second, but it's still young, this qualifying session. Who are you watching out for this qualifying session to be at the top of the board or amongst the contenders later today?
I mean, it's hard to pick just one with the strength of field we have right now. How about we go with Keegan Kaminsky, who just went fastest overall by 0.2 over his GFC Formula Works teammate Jake Drew. Both of them are looking strong going into this one. Keegan Kaminsky is the reigning champion, and Jake Drew is one of the best drivers in this field. His accolades go on. 2022 ARCA champion. He has NASCAR Truck Series starts and so many more race wins at every level of American karting. The two GFC teammates looking good. And how about Zachary Clayton DeMello, the Canadian, who has IndyCar starts and an Indy 500 start back in 2018 with Dale Coyne Racing. He's always one to watch out on. But as you see right now on the timing screen, it is 1, 2, 3 for Formula Works and GFC karting.
Seen a lot of CCD in various different series. Also raced a lot in Indiana, actually, in some of the tracks at Lakeland, Indiana. Now part of the K1 ladder as well. So keeping an eye on that 951 potentially to see if he's able to charge ahead. He's someone that's been able to push forward at the end of runs. Seen some hand signals from some of the drivers in the pack there. Kaminsky still staying top of the board now by 1,000th of a second, by the way. With still 2 minutes to go, this is getting a little bit dicey in this pack. Starting to see how these karts fare out to close out their seconds here. Keep an eye on the 922 working their way back into the pack.
Yeah, still Kaminsky, Drew, and Stamps at the top of the leaderboard as the session continues on. The battling we saw earlier on in the session has kind of come to a halt. Oliver Calvo also moving his way up there as well, the 956. Currently in 5th at the moment. He's a driver to look out for. He's always quick in national racing competition. He has a couple Super Karts USA Super National podiums underneath him and won both races at the Summer Mats at Newcastle in K100 Senior last season. So Calvo definitely going to be one to watch out for.
Minute to go in this qualifying session. Kaminsky still holds on to it. Still the 922. Part of that focus, by the way, that's Carter Knight, 29th at the moment. Knight so far has been just riding one of the calmer paths at the moment. Some of the other drivers, well, Kaminsky, he's bump drafting a little bit to be able to work his way around the final sector right now. All seeing a signal from the flagman. Yellow flag is out as one kart goes off the racetrack and into the grass. That is the 965 that's having some problems there. Calvo jumps to the top of the board as one of the drivers has an issue. That is Maximilian Bowie that is having some issues on the front straightaway.
One more thing, Keegan Kaminsky at the top, at the second on the leaderboard. Looking at his rear bumper, I think it's looking a little loose, or that's the way they have it set up. You can see on the right side, this could be huge if they meatball him. The bumper of Keegan Kaminsky is starting to fall off on that right side. I'm not sure how Supercars USA officials will be handling that, if they do give him the meatball, if this time will stand, or if they take that away. That could be huge, Justin, for the reigning champ, as he's pulling in now.
Yeah, he's got to come in. That is dragging on the ground there. So Kaminsky's run comes to a close. Yellow flag and checker flag displayed together. Kaminsky was in the top 3 to close this session. Jake Drew takes the top of the board, and the 950 over Calvo So the 2022 ARC Menards West Series champion moves up, and we have one more kart stopped at the side of the racetrack. Some more drivers having some issues to close out the session. That's in the middle of the racetrack, should say.
Yeah, two
karts breaking down there.
Yeah, sorry to go over you there, Justin. A couple of karts breaking down in turn one there. Great work by the Supercars USA officials to get those karts clear. If you watch any of the Supernats coverage, they are the quickest in the industry in clearing these karts and keeping it safe. But like you said, Jake Drew on top of the scoring pylon, hitting Oliver Calvo by 0.03 of a second. Kaminsky is in third for the time being. We'll see how Supercars USA officials put him to the rear if he gets to keep that time, as they'll be filing in. To have the field this close, and you have to scroll all the way down to almost like 25th or so to get within the second margin. So 25 karts within a second. It's going to be a good one to watch for the pre-final and the final come later today, Justin, as you see all these drivers shaking hands, giving a little debrief on how that session went. Definitely looking forward to this one later on today.
So it's Jake Drew who set the fastest time in this session, by the way, a 102.9, the only driver to be in that bracket to close out qualifying. Calvo in second, Kaminsky tentatively third. Then you have Minshew in the fourth spot. Aldridge qualified in the fifth position. Max Sega was in sixth. Isaac Gutierrez, CCD, Zachary Clayman DeMello in eighth position. Then you had Stamps and rounding out the top 10, Aiden Quino. Put up a time 4/10 off the pole. 10th of a second tighter by 0.2 compared to the juniors, for those curious. But the tone being set so far here from the KA100s. These drivers are looking like they're going to put on a great show later on today. It should be a fun day for these drivers as we get the kart cleanup.
Yeah, there's a little bit of time to look further down the order. Josh Campbell down in 26. That's not where he would have wanted to start. He won the Rock Vegas in Rock VLR, as I believe we'll have footage of Kaminsky's bumper possibly on the GFC side. It's starting to drag, and at this speed, you can definitely feel that bumper starting to drag, something feeling off, as Kaminsky got the meatball flag, right there for the GFC Formula Works driver. So not how he wanted to start off his weekend, Justin, and hopefully for their sake, they get to keep that second row starting spot.
Seen the tail end of it in the live action. Now we do know for sure that meatball flag out, that's going to really put a hamper to Kaminsky's championship defense. Say the very least, as you see everyone work their way through the inspection line. Mind you, next up is the Mini Swifts, brought to you by Santa Racing. That's going to be their next grouping coming up here once track cleanup is complete. There are a lot of karts here at this facility, mind you. Hundreds of drivers making their way out here to California to compete in this first round for a chance to battle for championships. 52 karts alone took part in the KA100 senior qualifying.
A huge class for the KA100 senior drivers. You always come out in force on the West Coast, and it's awesome to see. Obviously, being in California, a ton of Cali drivers representing a lot of West Coast drivers, but looking at the entry list, there's more from the more eastern you go. One standing out in KA Junior, Christopher Yotzi from Indiana, on the GFC Formula Works team, making the trek out this weekend for a little bit of spring training and shaking the rust off for his 2025 campaign. As you see the Mini Swifts there on grid, engines are fired and ready to go for their qualifying session. It's been two chaotic sessions with both of the KA100 classes. You have to think, Justin, it's probably going to be about the same and due for course in Mini.
Absolutely, this should be a fun grouping here once again for Mini Swift. Here, coming up here, should say, for the Mini Swift partner, that is HRT Driver Development. That is the Micro Swift partner I mentioned in terms of Santa Racing for later on today. So, how are things for the Mini Swifts? For those curious, in the session earlier, 19 people, part of the earlier practice session, Nathan Ramirez over Luis Martinez by 17/100ths. They were in the 108s for speed. Arthur Kelly, Lucas Tarango, and Braden Wagner were amongst the top 5 in the practice session. Who are you keeping out on for this third grouping of drivers here today? Who stands out the most to you?
One is reigning Micro Swift champion Hudson Hidalgo, making the move up into Mini Swift this year. A lot of the front-running micros from the 2024 season moving up for 2025. In terms of championship position last year, first, third, fourth, 5th, and 6th in the Micro Swift standings in 2024, making the step up into Mini, so we do have a bit of a stacked field this weekend. Braden Wagner, one to look out for in terms of 2024 standings. Again, he was the highest finisher that stayed in Mini Swift and did not make the jump up to KA 100 juniors. Karts are starting to file out on track, and they'll be doing their little dance for position, as it does look like a bit of a start as they go double file through turns 2 and 3. Nathan Ramirez, another one to look out for on the Parallel USA kart, 5th in the championship last season and 2 top 10s last year when it came to K1 circuit. He'll be one to keep an eye on.
We're underway for our third qualifying grouping, the Mini Swifts. Mind you, the races today, the pre-final distance will be 8 laps for this class, 16 laps for the finals distance. That is going to be 1 and 2 laps shorter respectively compared to some of the other classes. Micro Swifts will be the same way later on today. So looking at some of these drivers as they try and build themselves up to speed. Amongst those at the front group have Dalgo, who is currently 2nd in the choo-choo train. He's lined up the moment behind. It looks like 104 maybe that number plate. That is Braden Wagner that they're lined up with. The rest of these drivers staying all stagnant, a lot more calmer compared to the start of the last group, as they will take the green flag here. We're underway for our third grouping officially.
Yeah, calm is the way you would describe this after seeing the 2 KA classes. Only 19 karts in this field. I say only 19, that's a really good turnout for a Mini Swift category, but less drivers to have to battle and find their way with. A lot of drivers doing the 2x2 method through this qualifying session. A couple of drivers in the second battle pack, is about 4 or 3 or so in there, but the 104 of Braden Wagner leading the 131 of Hudson Hidalgo. This most likely will have the pole sitter sitting in this group right here, as they're starting to build a gap to the rest of the field already, and 2 of the strongest drivers, in my opinion, in this field working together. It's going to be difficult for the rest of the pack to catch up to these 2.
Extremely difficult. They've been able to pick up a decent amount of buffer over the drivers trying to actually jet out and see what the pole's like behind them. See where the times fall for the first time around as they go across the rumble strips. A lot of them across the rumble strips. It's time by top of the board for Tarango to begin this session by 1,000th of a second. Tarango, somebody to keep an eye on. 12th in the 2024 Super Nats Micro Swift finish in 2024.
Yeah, on the Nitro Kart for Ruthless Karting, also a Rotax US Trophy West and Challenge of the Americas race winner from last season, so carrying that momentum into 2025 to try and get themselves on top of the podium yet again, and maybe some national race wins or podiums to come. But early days to say that. I'll focus on qualifying. You see Lucas on screen, their bright orange helmet and kart on board the Ruthless Karting machine. Starting to leave karts further back. I think that's Andrew James on the HRT driver development kart in his rear view mirror, and starting to hunt down the lead 2 of Wagner and Hidalgo further up the packs. They're crossing the time and scoring beacon yet again. Looking at the time sheet, is still though Nathan Ramirez, who gets pipped by Andrew Janis on the 112, is the driver who's starting to reel these guys in on that HRT that we were talking about behind Tango. So it's become a 4-kart battle for the pole as things stand, as You said that the pole sitter was probably going to come from these front two. I take that back. It's going to most likely come from these top four because they are flying right now.
Keep an eye on Janice so far in the 108.4s. It's the back grouping, you're right, that's done the most work in terms of Martinez and Ramirez. They are a fair ways back in the queue at the moment to be able to be top of the board. 6/10 up right now over Janice for comparison's sake. So, do you prefer to be in the front or the back of a grouping like we're seeing here in the qualifying session? What's usually your preference in the kart?
Well, I mean, it's all up to driver preference. Like you say, some drivers are more comfortable being the leader. Some drivers who maybe have a little bit of a better engine like to push. It's just all about who's quicker and who's better in certain parts of the track. Personally, I've always liked leading. I feel like being stable on the kart and getting that push from behind is the best place for me. But other drivers like to be on that bumper and forcing the driver to go that little bit quicker at the end of the straightaways. As Luis Martinez, the 177 driver on board the Martinez Motorsports Croc Promotions kart, currently fastest at the moment by 3 thousandths of a second over Nathan Ramirez at the moment.
The Pico Rivera, California based driver still at the top of the board as you keep an eye on some of the other drivers, how they'll race along in this session. See, calmness continues up at the front here to close out. Here with less than a minute and a half to go, about a minute to go when they get up to the line to be able to close out this qualifying session. Let's see what the times now move up here in this top four grouping. Looks like not really any movement up there. If anything, Janice attempted faster time of the 108 flats. It was a 108.9, making a 107.9 just put in by Martinez and Ramirez for comparison's sake.
And a little bit of reshuffling in this front group at the moment. Still, like you said, Martinez holding that top spot. Not a lot of shuffling, but we might have seen some drivers backing off or fighting for position that led to no improvement of lap time. You got to say, as a driver who's done this before, being overtaken in a qualifying session is not really the most nice thing to have. It's a bit demoralizing and possibly a bit annoying as they're all bumper to bumper. You can throw a blanket over that front three, grenading the back of the helmet, saying let's go and let's try and work together, as Martinez might be under pressure this time if they have a three-kart train. Checkered flag in the air this time. Looking at the time sheets, if anyone can dethrone the 177 of Martinez, no one at the moment really improving, as it seems like Luis Martinez should be provisional pole sitter on that Croc Promotions kart. He holds that next time across the line. No one really improving that last lap, Justin, as we've seen throughout the K100 classes that the last lap did have some pace for a couple of drivers, but interesting to see no real improvement this time by.
So the top 10 looks like this. Luis Martinez does keep the top of the board over Nathan Ramirez. Ramirez is that driver hiding on the pylon. Andrew Janice in third spot. Braden Wagner in fourth position. 4/10 in fact, up the pole time. Lucas Durango followed by Hudson Dacco. Then it's Asher Zansky. Then it's Joshua Wheeler. Eiler rounding out the top 9 with Arthur Kelly in the 10th position. You're a second spread amongst those. So 3 groupings complete so far here this morning. Qualifying so far going smoothly in these sessions. The next grouping, KA100 Master. We'll see that on the other side of the break. You're watching Kart Chaser for coverage of the SKUSA Pro-Kart Challenge for the K1 circuit here in California.
Are you looking to take the next step in your racing journey? Well, look no further than PitFit.
With 2 locations in Charlotte, North Carolina and Indianapolis, Indiana, PitFit trains drivers all the way from grassroots level karting to IndyCar and NASCAR, with top-of-the-line personalized coaching to improve physical and cognitive fitness.
For more information on programs, check out PitFit on Instagram or Facebook today. DPK Americas is bridging the gap between the U.S. and the 2-time world champion DPK Alonso Kart factory team in Europe.
In partnership with Team Binnick, they offer drivers a complete career path from the Americas to Europe that allows them to continue their driver development on both sides of the world, all underneath the DPK umbrella.
For more information, contact DPK Americas at max@drivensm.com to take the next step in your driver development journey today.
K1 Circuit, the world's greatest outdoor karting facility, is now open. Open karting and rental session schedules are available online. Rentals will resume today after the race event at 5 p.m. Thanks to Kart Chaser for live streaming the event at K1 Circuit, your coverage will resume shortly.
Let's go race.
Come on, man.
For today's coverage of the Pro-Kart Challenge, as grouping number 4 now hits the racetrack. On track is the KA100 Masters, brought to you by Mike Manning Karting. Qualifying already a couple minutes in, Tim Mayer currently at the top of the board so far. Nate, this grouping going to be interesting to see who's at the top. Damon Duckworth showed some great speed earlier today, for example, in the practice session.
Yeah, Duckworth obviously going to be one to look out for, like you said, topping the timesheets only by half a tenth, though, in the practice session over at Tim Mayer, who currently leads by 0.2 of a second on his 433 Atomic Karting Dillard, that you see on the screen there, making his way through turns 1, 2, and 3. Probably not going to see the amount of dicing for position we saw in the KA100 junior and senior categories, with only 13 drivers in this class. Again, I say only 13, a really good turnout for these KA100 Masters drivers on this 1st of March. A bit of spring training for these guys, but battle packs starting to form between these three. Obviously, like we said at the top of the show, draft is going to be key, especially in these qualifying sessions. So this is going to help them out if they can work together enough to get an optimal time out of this.
Dees Robertson is grouping right now, by the way, so far setting times up to 0.8 quicker than the rest of the groupings at the moment. So this top group, or at least some of the drivers in this top group, look very solid. Duckworth into that middle bridge, seen some improvement, no change on the pylon, with a 105.4 from Mayer in response. So see some of the hand signals coming out here. What do you try and signal for in a grouping like this, like you just seen with Duckworth maybe in the middle of this pack? They actually spread apart after that signal.
Yeah, it looked like a little bit of miscommunication there. There's not a lot of signaling that you can do in qualifying. Obviously, the universal tapping the back of the helmet of let's push together. You can do the pointing forward of let's try and catch up to the guy in front, but most of those signals are saved for the race. Most drivers, though, opting to just keep both hands on the wheel and not give anything away. But Tim Meyer still at the top of the time sheets by about a 10th over Damian Duckworth, who, like we said, went fastest in practice or warm-up session earlier on today. Through the final corner for these guys, looking for improvement in lap time. Not seeing a ton straight off the bat, no real improvement. So they'll go again and reshuffle the order even more this lap around.
So right now the Atomic Karting Kart still stays at the top of the board for the time being, but seeing some of those Nash karting machines up to third for the moment as well. Joshua Daly picking up some tempo over Seth Willits. We'll see where these drivers shuffle. They still have 40 seconds to go on the clock, though, in this grouping. As you see after that signal before, Duckworth is now falling back a little bit towards the 433 car, working with Meyer a little bit after we've seen the start of their session. They've also actually picked up a couple of other karts in their shuffles here, it seems. Just adding to the numbers here to close out the session. Looks like they'll get one more lap barely, as there's an air signal. There's the signal for one more to go.
And I think that's Meyer feeling that the kart is hooked up and seeing the delta on the dash under him as the driver behind starting to back off. It's the 433 of Meyer backing off from the Gillard. So obviously he must have seen something on his dash where he was not improving on the times, even though he did improve last time around by almost a 10th over Joshua Daly. So we'll see if Meyer's time can stand from the rest of the field. A fairly compact top three, separated by about a 10th and a half last time across the timing and scoring beacon. More drivers starting to take the checkered flag this time around, but we'll see, Justin, if anyone can top Meyer, that's really held the top of this pylon since the word go in this session.
Oh, he did. We spun it out, actually. He slid hard across the curbing coming to the checker flag. As he'll come across the stripe, stay top of the board, looks like here. We did see a change for second right at the very tail end there. Mayan Spezarelli jumping up to the second spot. The 427 kart, should say, jumping up to P2 there. So we'll take a look at the results here as these drivers come into the pit lane after seeing the top of the session separated by a 10th of a second. Meyer took the top of the board over the 427. Early, then it is Joshua Daly, Damon Duckworth, Seth Willits, the top five. Robert Switzler in the 6th position. Scott Nealon, then it's Jeff Bays, along with Armand Cornell in the 9th spot. Byron Allen rounded out the top 10 for our 4th qualifying grouping. So these drivers finish up what was a pretty interesting qualifying session. Still 4 more groupings to go as these drivers for the Masters come into pit road.
Definitely a fairly calm one compared to the ones we've seen. We'll have FZ125 shifter presented by P1 Racing Engines next up. That is still a little bit away, but a few drivers to note going into that one. Truly Adams, SKUSA Pro Tour winner in K100 Junior competition. DJ Jenkins, the 2024 Pro-Kart Challenge Master Shifter champion, as they'll be rolling onto track here with their Spec Honda and Rock shifter engine packages. One driver a little late to grid. I believe that might be Truly Adams. Could be wrong on that. It is a factory kart, and that's what he is running. I think it is Truly Adams being a little slow to get on there. But Justin, with how slow these shifter drivers take these opening couple of laps to get heat into the tires and not to overwork them too much, not going to be too worried for him to make it on track before the 90-second rule comes into play.
As long as you get the driver's suit on within that time, you should be good to go. As these drivers get heat in their tires, leading the way in the warm-up session was Liam Jones earlier today. A 3:17 car over Truly Adams by 0.2 of a second. Now these drivers, keep in mind, when it comes to this series, are going to have a different type of championship prize pool compared to those in the air classes. For this championship, there's a Supernats entry for the FC shifters, for the 125 spec shifters that bring them an entry to the Supernats, but also tires in Pro Shifter with a KZ engine lease. That gets you the first place champ. Then the second place finisher in the championship would also pick up a Supernats entry with tires. Third place in this championship gets a full day of shifter car coaching and training with Billy Musgrave. So a bit different of a price structure compared to the Air Championships, but still a couple Supernats entries on the line when it comes to the FC 125 spec shifters.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of good prizes still on the line for these guys as tires are starting to warm up and lap times are going to be more representative of what they normally would be. You saw the 3:10 of Dane Idelson in front as they drove past one driver, the 3:16 factory kart machine, Jonathan Bischoff, losing it a little bit there in turn 13, having to go from sixth gear down to about second into that corner as some changing for position between the factory kart drivers.
Seeing a lot of shuffling as McCoy went for the pass to get around the 316. See just how much they're able to zip and power their way through and slide the back tires a little bit. This is going to be one of those classes that's one of your fastest on track here today in terms of lap times.
And they're still just getting used to the track at the moment. Still, like we said earlier on in the show, not a long warm-up session for these guys to start off the day, so a little bit of shaking the rust off this morning. Truly Adams goes to the top of the timesheet by 3.5 of a second over McCoy. So after a little bit of a slow start to qualifying, it doesn't hinder Truly Adams as factory kart driver holds top spot, but not for long. Matthew McCoy and Bischoff will take that away from them as they go 1 and 2, putting Truly Adams almost half a second back from pole position. It's a 4/10 gap for McCoy. As I say that, Liam Jones now jumps to the top of the timing charts as another factory kart driver leading the way. So all these different drivers popping up to the top of the timesheets, Justin, but one thing staying the same with factory karts holding that top position.
Bischoff, that pronunciation when it comes to 316, as you keep an eye on the track. As these drivers continue to shuffle around. Keep in mind, Truly Adams going to be about a half to 3/4 of a track difference compared to the rest of these drivers on the circuit at the moment. So there is going to be a bit of overlay on when these fast times are going to come on from circuit park to circuit park. Take a look at 335, that's Tony Rossetti that we're taking a look at the moment. Looking to move up for the 9th position. He's in a sea of red and black karts that all seem to be in the same vicinity, just so happens.
Absolutely, a ton of factory karts in this class. Not a lot of drivers on the American, not on the American-made machinery. You have a couple CRG karts in this class. I believe one Fernando Alonso kart, and that's about it for the European machinery. One of those drivers you just saw off screen, but Truly Adams, the driver, had a slow start to it, leads the field at this point by about 4.5 tenths of a second over McCoy. So the 437 driver will have a little bit of a draft going into the S's section, being held up a little bit, having to go up and over the curb, and out, getting a little bit too much heat into that outside rear tire might hurt him a little bit, and potentially might have to back off if he's overheated the tires too much to get one more flyer in.
Take a look at Adams, by the way, on screen, who is flying around this racetrack by near 0.2 of a second. Over 60 years of family heritage in the motorsports industry, looking to move up through the ranks to be able to try and get to the highest levels of motorsport. He has had some strong speed when it comes to today. Looking very solid in this session. In fact, 1 minute near flat last time by. Bischoff also got a little bit close within 0.2 still, although he's finishing up on the other side of the racetrack. Still 33 seconds to go. What are your thoughts on Truly Adams and what he's been able to showcase in his kart with the legacy his family's built?
Yeah, not a huge surprise to see Truly Adams at the top of the timesheets here. He's been one of the drivers to look out for in the national karting scene. Got a win at TSRS last season, another SKUSA affiliated series in 206 Senior. Seen a replay of Truly Adams going through the S's section, just being really precise with that machine and really leaning to the outside of the corner to get even more weight in those outside rears. Checkered flag in the air this time for Truly Adams. Seems to improve. I believe last time he was at about a minute dead for Adams. Is this off in second, unable to improve. Same with McCoy, is still in third. So Truly Adams, your provisional pole sitter for FC 125 shifter, presented by P1 Racing Engines, with a whole host of factory karts in this field as well. Jonathan Bischoff, Matthew McCoy running out your top three, then Liam Jones and Dane Idelson, your top five for the FC 125 shifter class.
Continuing on with qualifying, remember, after the qualifying session, we move to members only for the pre-final and finals throughout the day and for tomorrow as well. Be sure to subscribe to Kart Chaser to be able to keep an eye on the action throughout the day today here from K1 Circuit and for the Pro Kart Challenge. Take a look at some of the mountainsides here at this facility here in Beaumont, California, as we continue on with the action. Should say that was where the famed Morin Raceway was. That was designed by Rocky Morin. That is why Turn 3 is called Rocky Morin Court. He designed this facility, 40 feet of elevation change. There's also a 14-degree bank corner on this racetrack, along with those sweeping S's we've seen around this facility, as we take a look at some of the picturesque views here.
Compared to some of the other tracks we go to on the national scene, it's hard to beat these views nestled in between the mountains. So for the on-site crew and drivers here this weekend, definitely a sight to take in when they're not during working on karts or racing during their busy schedule throughout the weekend. We'll have mini shifter and junior shifter on track next as we clear the track of the FC 125, a new class for California Pro Kart Challenge carpet competition this weekend. It's going to be one to look out for. We saw the debut and the really national test session of mini shifter package at the Superkarts USA Super Nationals last year. A handful of drivers taking part in that. A couple of them will be in this session now, but junior shifter racing in the United States is officially green. A new era really started by Factory Karts and Billy Musgrave to get this class up and running. So a bit of an unknown, Justin, going into this one, as you don't have any previous knowledge of 2024 results. It's kind of a slate wiped clean and a new opportunity for these drivers to make a name for themselves.
Underway in these sessions brought to you by Precision Karting for the mini shifters. Then, when it comes to the junior shifters, it is Nash Motorsports that is presenting sponsor for that series today. So those two classes worked their way around. Eric Doan led the way for all classes in the warm-up session by a whopping 0.6 of a second in the 5:43. So we'll have to watch if that speed's backed up. Obviously, that's going to be a little bit different here in qualifying. You'd think it's going to be a little bit closer than 0.6.
Absolutely. Of course, those warm-up sessions being 7 minutes, you have 3 extra, at least on the schedule for this one. At least the longer session for these drivers to get to grips with new machinery. But Eric Doan has been one of the drivers we watched in the 2024 calendar last year for those guys. But looking right now, we're on the junior class, and with the minis sharing the track, I think we're just on the junior classes, but the bit of a difference between these two, a 65cc versus an 85cc engine for those guys. Junior drivers still on track, though. No real moves for position. One bumper falling off, though, on one of the factory carts. Justin, is Supercarts USA officials catching that one, still trying to get an ID. I believe that's the 528 of John McClellan. I might be wrong on that one.
Yep.
At least that's what I got on. On my timing sheet. It says he's on a Nash Motorsports cart for this weekend, but on the factory carts entry. So, unfortunate way to start off his qualifying session.
All right, so the meatball flag, or given it, should say. He was in second in the warm-up session earlier on today, so that is unfortunate for his case right now. But Eric Doan still right away, Doan by near 0.5 of a second in this grouping at the moment, at the top of the board. Seeing some of the drivers shuffle around here, so this should be an interesting time now for a couple of these drivers. You already see the hand signals, by the way, from that 528 cart. Going to have to sort something out. Going to stay on the racetrack at least, as that bumper gets lower and lower on that car. It looks like they served on the meatball flag again.
Yeah, they showed the meatball flag again, and John putting his hand up, acknowledging that time. He's going to get out of the way of the rest of this junior field. So here's one of the mini shifter drivers that just went past. You can tell those two classes apart, obviously, by size of the cart. There's Troy Ferguson making his way around, the 2023 Pro-Kart Challenge Mini Swift champion, and a few SKUSA Pro Tour wins last year as well for him. He's most likely the favorite going into this weekend for the mini shifter. He's actually second overall, 4/10 behind Eric Doan. He's faster than a couple of the junior drivers, which is incredibly impressive to put it in endurance racing terms, Justin. It's like an LMP2 car going faster than LMP1 back in those days. So very impressive for Troy. He's one of the best mini drivers in the nation at the moment. So not too surprised by his showing so far.
Absolutely here. As we continue on with the action here in this session. Just 2 minutes to work with for the drivers. Remember, these classes will be racing with each other later on in the session as well. Or should I say later on in the day for these competitors. So, it's been impressive so far from Ferguson and his grouping right now. That 700 number plate up by near a full second, in fact, to the factory cart. See him just slipping and sliding his way to the S's, looking very comfortable right now, Ferguson.
Yeah, absolutely, for Troy Ferguson. Again, still second on the overall timing, but is on pole provisionally for mini shifter. He's 1.1 seconds away from Eric Doan on his junior shifter, but the next closest driver is just moving up into third. Sebastian D. Mosaic, just about 2/10 away, a little bit under that, behind Troy Ferguson, 2/10 behind Troy Ferguson. So Troy not having the huge gap that he originally had, as Nathan Dupuis making his way up the timing sheets as well. That's second overall for junior shifter, and third overall for the 538 driver.
Just about almost complete for this portion of the qualifying session. Still following along with Ferguson for those tuning in here. Currently in the final three portions of our qualifying groups. Before we move behind the paywall for pre-final and the finals, 9 laps will be the distance for the pre-final later on today. The finals for each of the classes is going to be 18 laps, except for Mini Swift Micro. That's going to be 16 laps apiece. 542 having to come into pit road a little bit earlier. That's Caleb Brown having some troubles, it looks like, for the end of this session. Checkered flag for said session now. Ferguson finishes up with a 103 flat. Eric Doan stays at the top of the board. It looks like we'll see if there's any shuffles for the end of this group. From Elk Grove, California, the Nash Motorsports entry of Eric Doan stays top of the board. Come across the stripe this time here. That gap over Nathan Dupuis, 1 second. An impressive qualifying session for the 543 card as the rest of these drivers finish up.
Nathan Dupuis not originally on the entry list, making a bit of a late entry this weekend and making the most of it. P2 for him, but still a second back is going to be a bit of a mountain to climb to catch up to Eric Doan. Troy Ferguson getting pole position for the mini shifter class, as we'll be going to commercial break before we get to the final 2 classes in this qualifying session. You're watching the SKUSA Pro-Kart Challenge on Kart Chaser. Stay with us.
Let's go race.
Come on, man.
Paulie Massimino wins in KA. Paulie Massimino is a winner in OKN Stars.
Take your driving to the next level with one-on-one coaching from 2024 OKN Stars champion Paulie Massimino. Kart rental options are available if you'd like to keep yours at home, and drivers in all classes are welcome. From Briggs 206 to Mini to KA100 and X30. With in-depth data analysis, onboard video footage review, and lead follow on-track sessions, each private coaching session will see you end as a more complete driver than when you started. Book your coaching session now.
Brandon, why are there all these charges for just over $200 from Acceleration Kart Racing's website?
That's because AKR gives you free shipping on orders of $200 or more within the continental US.
Okay, but I thought you were just getting a pair of gloves. That's what, 70 bucks?
But if I'm getting a new pair of gloves, I might as well get a new pair of shoes to match. And then on top of that, I'll get a neck brace because with the shipping, it's basically free.
Yeah, I do not think the math checks out on that.
everything you need, all in one place and shipped to your door for free for orders of $200 or more. Exclusions apply. Spend responsibly. Shop AKR.com.
Keep an eye on the cards for the Micro Swifts, brought to you by Santa Racing, as qualifying reaching its final minute At the top of the board, it's Mason Brody in the 272 over Eden Go by 38/100ths of a second. It's go time for both of these karts. The Nash karts working together at the board name.
Yeah, a little bit of teammates helping each other out at the moment. This qualifying session, any help you can get, you will take. And like we were saying, this is such a drafting track from turns 12 to turn 5. So for these mini drivers to hopefully be able to cut a little bit less air, micro drivers, excuse me, to cut a little bit of less air is definitely going to help on the timing sheet. Mason Brody in shot, and at the top of the time sheets as the checkered flag will fall for our penultimate qualifying session of the day. Brody looks like he will hold top spot over Aiden Go by 200ths of a second for those two. So the rest of the field starting to file in. A couple drivers going a little bit wide and turn 13 and up and over that curve that has a bit of a rough drop-off on drivers left. So these drivers probably not going to be wanting to go over that curve too much this weekend. But like we see now, though, Matthew Coley at the top of the timesheets, the 290 kart will provisionally lead us to the green in Micro Swift, that being one of the Nitro Kart drivers that you see on the official results there by 0.003 of a second, Justin.
So we take it away absolutely right at the very edge of the session. Mason Brody over Aiden Go. Then it's rounding out the top for Lyden McPhail. Then you have Shiflett, Guido, along with Sanders in the top 7. Gianni Tolson, followed by Carson Bishop. And then it was Caleb Canfield in the top 10 in that group. So we have one more set of qualifiers to go. It will be the Pro Shifters brought to you by Precision Racing Engines, and then the Master Shifters together with Mega Power Engines backing them. Who are you keeping an eye on in this final grouping for qualifying, as we have one more set of drivers before we go behind the paywall?
I mean, really, it's a matter of fact of who don't you pay attention to. You have such a stacked lineup in shifter kart racing, and the drivers they produce out west are some of the best in the nation. Kyle Wick and Hunter Pickett for GFC, along with Ethan Boer, will be a couple of drivers to watch. The 10-time champion in shifter kart racing in the Pro Kart Challenge and Mr. 5-time at the Super Nationals, Billy Musgrave, on board his California-made factory kart will be one to look out for as well. A lot of other drivers with sports car racing experience in Lamborghini Super Trofeo, GR86 Cup, and some Formula 4 testing in this field. Is one driver going for a bit of a loop. I believe it's one of the Masters drivers. You can see 3 numbers on there. Easy way to determine Master drivers from the Pro guys is 677 will be Vladimir on the Lando Norris part for him. But the Masters drivers will have the 3-digit numbers leading with the 6. The Pros will be numbers 0 through 99 is the best way to get those guys ID'd. But coming through the 6, 7, and 8 part of the track, nice and slow outlap for these drivers to get those tires up to temperature before they go pedal to the metal for this qualifying session.
Keeping an eye on who will set the top times here. Leading the way around the racetrack is Anthony White in the 30 kart. These drivers setting times under 1 minute. Oh, that was a tough hit against the curbing. What a save by White.
The CRG driver for Ron White Racing just barely holding on to the bucking Bronco through those first couple of corners. That was a save and a half by Anthony White. And probably starting to have to calm himself down after that one to get back in the rhythm and get back focused for this quality session. No one crossing the timing beacon for their first lap so far, but we will watch out for that one. Still, though, Justin, that was a heck of a save by White, and we'll see how that works out for him for the rest of the session.
Take a look at the replay. Yeah, just hit the left side tires hard against that curbing. Just able to keep it off the right side curbing as well in the midst of the save through turns 1 and 2. Despite that, still top of the board, although that second lap, you can guess, not going to be as quick here as these drivers start to put in their fast times now fully. Ethan Boer jumps to the top of the board over Hunter Pickett. Anthony Freeze jumps to third. Make that Kyle Wick now jumping to third. So these drivers built not much of a draft dependency for these karts in this final qualifying. In fact, really nobody grouping together here in the shifters to close out quality.
As you can see, those three at the top of the timesheets at the moment, all GFC karts with Boer, Pickett, and Wick, all of them opting to give themselves some fresh air and some free air in the shifter categories. That's a lot more, you want that free air in the shifter karts just with how fast they're going, and the downforce on the front end really starts to make a difference, as you can feel dirty air when you get a bit too close in this modern era of karting with how much aerodynamics we have on these karts. Ethan Boer going fastest at the moment, Hunter Pickett in second, and White in fourth, as Kyle Wick moving his way up onto the top of the timesheets. The 2023 Rock Vegas champion with SKUSA, USPKS, and Coda race wins under his belt. There's not really a lot that Kyle Wick hasn't won apart from that Super Nats champion that he will want to be crowned at one day. He'll have another chance at that in November, but as things stand, he is 1.1 to the good of his GFC teammate Ethan Boer in second, Hunter Pickett 1.5 down in third.
Speaking of Pickett, he had some interesting moments just a second ago. How about at the top of the S's for the corner exit? Pickett right now amongst those in the top 5 of the qualifying session. See him coming out of the corner, just trying to avoid it off track as much as possible. Had to hook it hard right before it went off into the sand.
That was good. Well held by Hunter Pickett there. It's a really fast and difficult section. Is turns 1, 2, and 3. A little bit of curb hopping through turn 2 and 3 too, as there's Kyle Wick on screen, who's currently fastest by only 0.07 of a second, because Billy Musgrave has moved his way up into second. There you can see the number 8 factory kart, who's closing in on Kyle Wick's provisional pole position. Half a second back from them, Ethan Boer still in that third spot, but Billy Musgrave looking for another win here at the Pro Kart Challenge, but that's going to have to start with a good starting position. And at the moment, getting faster and faster each time he crosses that time and scoring beacon. Won't be surprised to see the factory kart go to the top of the timesheets here.
Here we go. Looks like, yes, you're right. He goes top of the board for the time being, 16/100ths of a second. It's Musgrave jumping to the top of the session overall right now. Irving, by the way, currently leading that other class at the moment, that involving your master shifters at the moment. He's got that cushion by 0.8 of a second. Billy Musgrave, by the way, a 5-time SKUSA Supernats winner, flying. Going to be the one to watch throughout this entire day today and the races themselves. Boer, by the way, falling down to 5th so far. So, for Musgrave, he looks in full rhythm right now in his car with the way he's flying. Others getting a little bit racy, such as Pickett trying to dive to the inside there.
Yeah, Pickett looking for track position and not being able to find it. Goes down to 4th fastest, 4/10 off, as he's going to have Billy Musgrave still in front of him. But now, Kyle Wick retakes fastest time by the slimmest of margins of 0.04 of a second. It's going to be so fun to watch these two throughout the weekend. Kyle Wick and Billy Musgrave, two of the best in the business when it comes to shifter kart racing, as Musgrave had a little bit of a mistake potentially last lap that allowed Kyle Wick to close in and take that provisional pole position. potentially seen in turn 2. I believe we have a replay of that. As you see in the bottom right corner there, you want to get a little bit of curve in turn 2. Not that much, Billy. And that's going to ruin his lap as checkered flag is out. Kyle Wick currently holding provisional pole, and we'll see how long that stands, Justin, as Billy Musgrave. We'll see if he improves on this final lap, but after that mistake last time around, pretty doubtful if he can make that a pole position.
He has pulled in. We just received confirmation. He's already pulled in his cart. Last the drivers finish up, so Wick top of the board by 4 1/1000ths of a second. That's over the factory cart of Billy Musgrave. Then it's K110 followed by Hunter Pickett. Then it's Lucas Wiesenberg, who jumps up to the 5th spot. Ethan Booher, one of the Skip Barber drivers this year, in the 6th position. Micah Hendricks in 7th spot overall. 8th, Anthony White, after his treacherous hit to the curbing to start things off. Then for the air class, Travis Irving at the top over Anthony Freeze. That's the overall top 10. Luca Borto finished off 2nd in the Masters for their qualifying. So these drivers just about done. In fact, are done their qualifying rotation. Your thoughts on qualifying as we get ready to move behind the paywall?
Yeah, it's just everyone is so close at the moment, especially for a new track that, relatively new track at least, having 3 races here last year, but still everyone's still getting to grips with this beautiful K1 circuit. Looking forward to the racing, especially in those K100 categories for junior and senior. That will lead us off, of course, behind the paywall. You're not going to want to miss that later today.
Paywall is up next. Exclusive KC Premium members, be sure to tune in. The free replay available will be on Wednesday, but live coverage for the free portion would continue at AM Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern. But now it's time to go behind said paywall. It's time to go racing the pre-finals. Up next, here on Kart Chaser.